Alright, hello everybody. Welcome to the very first episode of Entertain Me. My name is Jason. I really look forward to getting to know you guys over the next while, and I hope you guys enjoy my channel and the content that I bring. As always, hit subscribe, hit like, leave comments, and let's get going. So, I was trying to think of a way to, kind of come into this channel and think, what do I want to do first? And then it kind of hit me because I got a package in the mail, and I was like, this is a sign this is going to be the first episode I do. So we're going to talk a little bit about, in my opinion, one of the greatest horror movies to come through in I don't even know how long, because I'm really picky when it comes to horror. But I think the movie that really hit the charts last year, and my favorite movie of last year, is by far this guy, Terrifier 2. Let's discuss.
Drop on by the Clown Cafe, your favorite meals on wheels. The menu is disgusting and it's full of special deals. Nothing here is good for you, so grab yourself a tray, 'cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Gobble up your order quick before it runs away, 'cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe.
Speaking of surprises, kids, we have a very special guest with us today. Now, for a guy who doesn't speak, he sure makes a lot of noise. All the way from Miles County, please welcome Art the Clown.
That song never gets old. So like many other fans of the original Terrifier, when I heard that they were doing a sequel to it, I was basically left on the edge of my seat wondering what this movie was going to be and when we were going to get it, so I could not wait until the release date. Unfortunately, we all had to do a bit of waiting because of a certain pandemic that hit.
Hey, did you hear what I said?
So anyway, we waited and we waited and we waited some more, and then finally in October of 2022, we got the news that Terrifier 2 was finished and going to be released. And I tell you one thing, I couldn't have been more excited when that happened. Unfortunately, it was getting a limited release in just the United States. And I live in Canada. So, while everyone was out there watching the movie, loving the movie, apparently getting sick and fainting in the theaters, I was kind of sat on the sidelines wondering, when is it going to be my turn to go have the fun of watching Art the Clown run amok again on the streets? And I kept waiting. Then one day, to my surprise, a miracle happened. Someone accidentally leaked the movie online, and I think on that morning when I actually found it, I had to pinch myself a couple times to make sure that it was real, because literally it felt like Christmas morning for me. So first thing in the morning, I literally jumped on the couch, I was under a blanket, and I sat down for the 2.5-hour run of a thrill ride, which was Terrifier 2. And I could not have been happier.
Sir.
So the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to Terrifier 2 is the genius behind the film itself, which is Mr. Damien Leone. Now, I was a huge fan of his work when I first saw All Hallows Eve randomly one time on, I think it was one of those cheap streaming services, and they kind of introduced that character of Art the Clown, and I was very intrigued by that character from the get-go. Then I remember watching on a whim, stumbling across the original Terrifier on, I think it was like Tubi or something for free. And watching it, I was sitting there thinking like, where has this movie been all my life and how have I never seen it? I must have been like really behind on the whole horror train there for a bit. But I think now after seeing, Terrifier 2 several times, I think it's fairly safe to say, and a lot of you would agree with me, that Damien Leone has really cemented himself now as a true horror icon up there with like John Carpenter, etc. The man is really a horror genius.
You are.
Looking at all the things that he brought to the film, he was like the writer, director, sound, special effects, co-producer. I'm sure the list goes on. And I think when you get somebody that has that much passion and drive and love for the story and the characters, it really comes through on the screen. And he also wasn't, I would assume, really affected by having like these big studios and all that trying to control his vision. Because the reality of what he produced was absolutely amazing, and it really does kind of play homage to really true fun horror from the 80s when you're dealing with like looking at like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. The Terrifier series is definitely right up there now with all of those classics. And the thing with Terrifier 2 is there's just so many facets in this film that make it such a true horror masterpiece. And these are really the things that are missing from any of these new horror movies that are coming out from these big studios with big budgets. Because honestly, from what I've been seeing, I've just been left with nothing but disappointment after getting so hyped up to see something and then you go and it's a piece of crap. Black Phone? Yes, I'm talking about you. So moving on to my second point, we definitely need to talk about the other genius in the group, who is David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown. So David Howard Thornton's version of Art the Clown truly is something mesmerizing to watch on the screen. For a character, obviously, that doesn't make a sound, doesn't make a peep at all, you really get across the screen what he's thinking and how he's feeling. He's going to go from terrifying to psychotic to some of the most brilliant physical comedy that I have ever seen in such a long time. I personally am going to call David Howard Thornton the Lucille Ball of horror.
Yes, they used to call me the Big Dipper.
I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that David Howard Thornton's version of Art the Clown has now pretty much been put into that horror icon status, and I fully would put him there with Michael, Freddy, and Jason. I think his spot there is safe now. So in conclusion, David Howard Thornton's performance in Terrifier 2 totally exceeded every expectation that I could have. It gave me everything I've ever could have wanted in a new horror villain. All I can say is really pay him more money. He is this franchise right along with Damien Leone, and I cannot wait to see what you two do next, because it really is just such a fun movie to watch. So thank you for the performance of the lifetime. So now let's move on to the special effects in this movie, and believe me, there is not one shortage of them in this movie. I think my favorite thing about the original Terrifier and this one that they continued with was the fact that they didn't go with CGI special effects. CGI effects serve a purpose in a certain place, but when it comes to horror movies and in this type, it just brings this more sense of realism to it. And I personally am the biggest fan. I think more movies need to do more of them because it shows off so good. Now, when we talk about special effects with this movie, and for anybody that maybe hasn't seen this or the original one, yeah, the brutality level on this compared to the first one definitely takes a step up. And there were even times where, let's say, the bedroom scene, you guys know what I'm talking about, where kind of halfway through I sat there thinking to myself, is there something really wrong with me for watching this and actually enjoying it? But then in that scene in particular, Art the Clown kind of re-enters it and really rubs salt in the wounds, and it made me laugh so hard that, again, maybe there is something wrong with me. I don't know, but I loved it. Part of my issue with CGI that I find is, for one, sometimes it just looks plain bad, and it can really take you out of the whole atmosphere of the whole movie and the feeling and take you out of it. I think my hatred of the CGI in horror really started with the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, with the whole bedroom scene coming through the wall. I hate that scene so much. So yes, Damien Leone did a fantastic job with special effects on this movie. You know, obviously a lot of us heard that there were jokes that they were submitting Terrifier 2 for the Oscars. And you know what? I understand the fact that it was never going to happen. But if you sit down and watch it, and if you do just look at the practical effects for what they are, and take the horror aspect out of your mind, they are superb effects. And that's all I can really say about that.
And I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now, you like me. Thank you.
So I think obviously a lot of us had heard all of the stories about people vomiting in the theater, passing out in the theater, this and that. After watching it, I'm like, you know what? Okay, I think the only scene, again, the bedroom scene, is the one that maybe took it a little bit too far, and maybe that was probably the scene where most people felt sick. But in all reality, it's, you know, I honestly didn't feel that bad about it. I honestly was kind of expecting them to be showing a bit more. There is the infamous scene where the guy is taking a leak outside, and apparently that scene is a lot more extended. But Damien Leone apparently felt that that was maybe a step too far to show in the shot with getting his junk cut, ripped off, whatever. So if they want to try to do that scene in Terrifier 3, Damien Leone, let me know. I will volunteer. Not a problem. Pick me. So definitely in Terrifier 2, you are getting A+ special effects. If you are somebody that maybe not a big fan of the horror genre but loves special effects, I think you could probably watch this and take some notes, because the degree that they go to is fantastic. And I will say, even if the special effects in this movie were taken way down in level, it would still be a fantastic horror movie and still one of the best horror movies out there. No questions asked. So next I want to talk about the one thing that the majority of horror movies nowadays get wrong, but Terrifier 2 gets done so right, and that is comedy. Like I've said before, I am really sick of going to these movies where they're trying to pander and get everybody possible into the theater to watch it. So they tone down the horror, they throw in a bunch of cheesy one-liners, they put these characters in there saying this, that, to try to make some stupid joke to lighten it up so it's not so scary. It's crap, and I'm sick of it. When you go to watch this movie, there is so much comedy throughout it, and it actually makes sense to the story, it adds to the horror, and it is probably some of the most entertaining comedy that I have seen in a long time. Whether it is Art the Clown trying on sunglasses, or Art the Clown feeding candy to a bunch of little trick-or-treaters, or my personal favorite, when at the beginning he was missing his own eye and he, you know, it was great. So for me, I have to say big bravo to both Damien and David on this movie for really, again, bringing the appropriate kind of comedy into this horror movie, because again, I do find a lot of horror movies do need that. And I think that's what makes this movie such a horror icon. Again, it reminds me of a lot of like A Nightmare on Elm Street with the way Freddy would play with the kids and this and that. So honestly, genius, perfection, mwah. So one of the things I was actually quite surprised of when I was watching a lot of these reviews before I actually got to see the movie was a lot of people were complaining about the runtime on the movie, which is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think. I honestly, and I didn't have an issue with the runtime at all. I personally think that most movies nowadays should be a minimum of 2 hours at least. I have no problem sitting between 2 to 3 hours. For me, it was just the fact that you can get an actual good storyline with like proper character development and all of that, because so many movies nowadays just tend to rush through everything and you're left with sequences that don't make sense or what happened there and why this. So I don't know. I found that while I was watching Terrifier 2, I was so sucked into that world with everything, with like your cinematography, again, the character development, the music that they actually used in the movie was absolutely perfect and really created such a great mood that I honestly, the next one for Terrifier 3, I think they should make it 3 hours long. I would be happier than hell. I honestly didn't want Terrifier 2 to end when I was watching it, so I was totally sold. So I think Terrifier 3, let's make it 3 hours. The other great thing that I really liked about this movie was the other great thing that I liked about this movie was the cast in it. So definitely a huge shout out to Laura Lavera for playing Sienna, who is absolutely awesome. When you're looking for a good final girl in a movie, she pretty much hits every mark across the board. She was tough. She was very pretty. She kicked Art the Clown's butt. Big time. So it is so nice to see when you get a strong female in there. She's not pathetic and flaunting around. It really is on par with like Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween. She was absolute perfection, so I hopefully will see her again in the third one. I thought she was great. The other person in this movie that did a really good job was Elliot Fullman as Jonathan. You know, I really thought that you got a really good sense of the relationship between him and Sienna as being brother and sister. Again, a lot of that comes just from the fact that we were allowed to have a bigger storyline so that we could get that. There was just really good chemistry there, and I thought that him as Jonathan, you got some really, he did kind of take a beating from Art the Clown throughout the movie, which actually, you know, I shouldn't say, but it was funny. Maybe he could have fought back a little more, but at the same time, I think if I was a kid and I was getting chased around by some maniacal clown like Art the Clown, I don't think I would have done much else either. Especially with someone who's trying to like eat my arm, eat my foot, and whipping me with a bunch of crazy blades on a chain. So yeah, all in all, in my opinion, I have to say that Terrifier 2 is probably the closest to a perfect horror movie that you can get, and I honestly don't think that I have enjoyed a horror movie that good in, I can't even tell you how long. I think it's just been so many disappointments over the years with, you get such hype on these movies and then you go to see them and it's like, what the hell was that? Halloween Ends? Yes, we're going to be having a video about that one too. I think again, when you look at the fact that this movie was built on like a $250,000 budget, absolutely extraordinary, especially the fact that it made so much money at the box office. And that's something, again, I'm not even a part of this movie, but I was so proud of them. I think it was such a feat. And I really hope that for the next one he gets, you know, some additional funding, because I can only imagine what this guy could do if you gave him maybe just double his budget at $500,000. The rumor is Terrifier 3 is going to be a lot darker. So that will actually be really interested to see. And I can't wait to be following up and giving you guys updates on that one. Damien Leone, if for some reason you ever watch this video and you need someone to do absolutely anything on your next Terrifier film, call me. I will be available. I will be there. No questions asked. But yeah, honestly, Terrifier 2, if you guys are a horror movie fan and you haven't seen it yet, see it. If you haven't seen this movie at all, definitely watch the first one first to kind of gauge your reaction to certain types of horror and gory effects. And if you can handle that one, buckle up for Terrifier 2 because it's upped the ante quite a bit on it. But again, in my opinion, it's just great. I absolutely loved it. But anyway, those are just my thoughts and opinions. I would love to hear what you guys have to say, if you've seen it, what you thought. Tell me what you agree with, tell me what you don't agree with. I just want to hear everyone's discussions on this one because, again, it's been a long time since a movie's actually gotten me this excited. Thank you so much for watching the video. I can't wait to start bringing you guys more content. Please hit like, subscribe, leave comments. I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Thank you so much. Have a good one.